Today I'm going to be talking about the infernal devices, but these books are heavy. Anyways, so lately I've been reading the Shadowhunter Chronicles and I have read them in order. I've read quite a few books, so I just wanted to talk about them on my channel with you guys because this is like my journey of like reading the books, and I just want to just have a book talk because I thought it would be fun. So if you haven't seen my last video where I talk about the first 3 books in the Mortal Instrument series, you should definitely check that out. This one I'm going to be talking about the Infernal Devices because I read them in publication order. And then the next video I'll be talking about the last 3 books in the Instruments video. So yeah, let's just get straight into it. And I also want to state that this video will be spoilers as it goes on. I'll try to spoil things from older books, like as I'm talking about like certain books. So if I'm talking about book 1, I'm not going to spoil anything from book 3. So you can kind of watch it, like if you like only read up to 2 books, then you can like stop the video and then, leave. So the first book I read was Clockwork Angel, and this was kind of like a reread to me. I started this book back in like last year when I first started the channel. These were the first books I bought because I was like, okay, well, I don't really think I like the Immortal Instruments, so I figured I would start with these first because everyone loved them. And I'm honestly so glad I went back and read the books in order and started with the Immortal Instruments instead of reading these first, because I think that would have put a damper on how I felt about the series. But I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I actually really enjoyed this book, and I think what helped me enjoy this book was the fact that I had already read half of it before, so I kind of knew the characters and I understood the story, and the simple fact that I read the first 3 books in the Mortal Instruments, so I understood the story even more, and then this helped me understand the Shadowhunter world even better. Like, it explained like peribatai better to me than in the first book. I kind of already knew what a peribatai was, but I just never it just never explained like their bond and like how close they really are, which they do actually explain like why, how, and like why as they go on in the series. But yeah, this was better upon my second reread, and I think it was because I was introduced to like the characters, like I already knew the characters and stuff like that. But the first time I read it, I was so bored. I DNF'd it. I was literally more than halfway done, and I just stopped reading it. I didn't really DNF. I just stopped reading it. So when I picked this up, I basically reread up until where I was. Like I kind of sped read, and then I like read the rest, and I was like, okay, this book was actually a really good book. And one thing about it is the series is like a very character-driven series, and I'm not a character-driven person. If you have watched my channel for a while, you would know that like I'm very much a plot and character-driven person. I kind of need both. I mean, I love characters, obviously, but that's usually not enough for me to keep going in a series. Like, I need to be able to like love. Like, I just need to be able to like have a plot, something to keep me interested, because I do get bored very easily. Like, that is something that happens to me in real life. Like, I get bored with things very easily. So especially with plot, like I can get bored very fast. And it's also very hard for me to fall in love with characters. Like, I didn't fall in love with Jace in the Mortal Instruments until the last book, and I'm still not even really in love with him, Like, sometimes it takes me forever to fall in love with a character. But yeah, there's a lot of things that I liked about this book. I liked Will and Tessa and Jim, and I liked their friendship. Well, Will and Jim's friendship, and like how connected they were as peribatai, and like it just showed how peribatai, like, you could really be connected with this person, and you're basically like siblings, but not really. Like, you have like this understanding love for each other, but only Shadowhunters really understand that love. And I really, really liked that aspect, and I really just liked Will and Jim as characters. And like, Will was so freaking mean to Tessa in this book, and I actually don't really like Tessa as a character. I think that she's boring. I think that she's very plain. She's like the worst character to follow. She doesn't really have much personality. Like, her only personality trait is reading, which, I mean, me, but at least I'm funny sometimes. Like, when Tessa would try to be funny, I would just be like, and then like Will laugh, and I'm like, sir, you're only laughing because she's pretty. Come on now. And now we're going to talk about the second book, because that's where the real tea kicks in. So the next book is Clockwork Prince, which this is my favorite cover in the entire trilogy, but sadly, this is my least favorite book in the entire trilogy. I give this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. It took me so long to get to this book because I was just so bored the entire time. Like, this book doesn't really have a plot, and it's just like, okay, some good stuff happens, but that's all. I will say one thing about Cassandra Clare. She has like the best quotes, and her world building is amazing, and she has really good characters, as we all know, and they're so funny, and like, yeah, that kept me entertained. But I was like, okay, there's nothing going on. Like, they're just sitting here talking to each other this entire time. Like, can we get a little something, something, you know? Like, can we throw in a little something? I don't know. Something keep me interested, because this book was just not, it was not keeping me interested at all. One thing was Jim proposing to Tessa. That really threw me off. I kind of already knew spoilers going into this trilogy. I already like knew the big spoiler in the last book. So I was always confused about, because I have the collector's map. This is a collector's edition, by the way. This one has Will's letters to Tessa, which I never read. I thought I was going to care, but I didn't. I never read it. But yeah, so I have the collector's edition of Clockwork Princess, and I always looked at the map, and I was always so confused, because I'm like, okay, so why doesn't Jim and Tessa have kids together if they're engaged? And why does Will and Tessa have kids together? Then as I knew spoilers were like, for the last book, I was like, okay, so how is like something happening with, like, you know, Jim proposing to Tessa? I was like really thrown off. I was like, oh, okay. I wasn't really convinced they loved each other. Like, I was, but I just always seen the love that she had for Will, and like the love that she had for Jim and Will are just two separate loves. And I do believe that you can love more than one person at the same time, but like obviously not be a cheater, you know, not in a cheating way. I mean, like, that's why I understand poly relationships. Like, I obviously don't support cheaters. Like, I hate cheaters. I do not read books with cheaters. Like, I absolutely hate them. But like, when it's actually, you know, both parties know about it, I do understand how somebody could love two people at the same time, because you can just get different types of love from different people, and that's so understandable. But I cannot stress this enough, as long as both parties know. That really threw me off, because I just like, I wasn't really fully convinced that they were like in love with each other. But then again, Jim was dying, which didn't make sense to me, like why he wanted to marry her even though she was dying. Like, why would you want to marry somebody that was like, you knew was gonna die the next day? Like, I understand it, but I don't at the same time. Will confessing his love to Tessa, but saying that she needs to stay with Jim. Like, Will was just such a great person, and there was a plot line in here that like I was annoyed with. Like, in the first book, Will was so mean to Tessa, and then it was like, in this book, it was like exposed that like he just felt like he was cursed. And I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't mean. I mean, I was eating it up. The girl, you know, your girl was eating it up that he was so mean to Tessa. But at the same time, I was like, okay, that's kind of a stupid excuse. But at the same time, I get it, because when you believe you're cursed, you believe that you're cursed, you know, like, and there's nothing that can like prove you that you're not cursed. So I 100% understand, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, okay, well. But yeah, him telling Tessa to like that he like is in love with her, but then saying to like stay with Jim, it's just like, it made me so sad, because you could tell that he loved Jim like all his heart, and he just wanted Jim to be happy. And like, even though Jim was dying, he wanted to do everything he could to like make his best friend have a happy life. And it just, I don't know, that just really made me so happy. And it was like one thing I really, really appreciated about this book. And then the end with the Will's sisters coming back, Cecily, I think that's how you pronounce it. I have been calling her Cecilia this entire book until Mika read the audiobook. It was like, it's not pronounced Cecilia. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm dumb. But I really liked Cecilia as a character, which I'll touch more on in the next book, because obviously she shows up at the end of this book. But overall, I give this book 3 stars, because not a lot happened. Like, even if you can see me trying to like touch on stuff, like I don't have a lot to touch on, because not a lot in this book really happens. So yeah, Clockwork Princess, which this is the collector's first edition with the family tree in the map, which when I first got this book, I got this book before I got all of them, and this is very old. Like, this was a library copy, I believe, and this, I think they had this book since the 1800s in their libraries, because look at it, like, look at this copy. I really need a new copy, but I'm gonna keep the dust jacket, obviously, because this is a collector's edition. But I don't know, but then again, at the same time, I kind of don't care, because I don't plan on rereading this trilogy. But also, upon rereading it, I could also fall in love with it. Like, I really don't know. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. It's a lot more interesting than the second book, but like by a little bit more. Like, so much goes down in this book, so like I appreciate that. And like when I was reading it, I was like, yeah, I can't give this book 3 stars. Like, I physically could not give this book like 3 stars. Like, it was like this, the plot lines that this book focused on was so good. It actually does have like a little plot in it. Like the first chapter like starts off with them doing, like it actually starts off with the plot line and something happening, but then like throughout the rest of the book, like for like the next like 7 chapters, like nothing happens after that, and it's like, you know, they're just waiting for Jim to die, and then the plot line really picks up, which I mean that was okay to me. Like this book, so much happens in this book, and I really do appreciate this. And then having read the rest of the series afterwards, like having read the Mortal Instruments afterwards, like I really do appreciate the characters in this book a lot more, and I actually hate Tessa a lot less as she's older. I still hate Tessa in this series, like don't get me wrong, it's still F Tessa till I die, but like I appreciate her more as an adult when I read the TMI series. Will and like Magnus talking about how Jim, like how Will was in love with Tessa while Jim was asleep, and then like at the end of the chapter, like Jim like opens his eyes, and that plot line was kind of spoiled for me, and I feel like that would have had me like really interested in the book, but someone kind of like, I posted that Clockwork Princess was boring, and then someone kind of spoiled that scene for me, so it kind of like put a damper on how I like felt. Like I was just like, oh okay, well I kind of like when I read it, when the person said the tweet, I was like, oh that sounds so interesting, and then when I read it I was like, oh okay, I guess. There was this really weird scene where like Mortman wanted Tessa to change into his freaking father, and I was like, what is going on? Like Mortmain, I said Mortman, like anyways, Mortmain wanted Tessa to turn into like his father, and I was like, okay. Then the plot really picks up when like Jim dies, but when Jim died, I didn't, like, it's not that I didn't care, but I knew that he like he had to come back to life somehow because I read the family tree, so it showed that he was still alive. So I'm like, okay, like he died, like okay, whatever. Cassandra Clare, like you're gonna bring him back to life, and that's what my good sis did. She brought him back to life. She made him a freaking silent brother, which I read City of Fallen Angels before I read Clockwork, before I read this one, and then I read City of Lost Souls and City of Hell and Fire after this. So when I finished this, I knew like Jim's like was a silent brother, and his name was Zachariah, and I kept thinking about how Zachariah was mentioned throughout the whole Mortal Instruments a lot, and I was just like, wow, like that is so crazy how Cassandra Clare did that. Like she really has the mind of a mastermind, you know, like wow, she's just such a freaking genius if you really think about it. Like wow, like she really thought out this series. Like, you know, she's not really pulling it out of her ass, which I mean she could be, but she got me fooled. And before I talk about the ending, I just want to talk about the characters. I stan Cecily. I hated Gabriel when I first read this, but I read Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, and like I love Gabriel now, and like I loved Gideon and Sophie in the second book. I love Sophie. Okay, I loved Sophie in the first book, to be honest. So like seeing her be happy, even though she was a mundane and like a freaking servant, seeing her be happy made me happy. And I love Cecily, and I actually loved her more than Tessa. Like Tessa kind of reminded me of like she was very like, I'm not like other girls, because like she could go on battles, like she could battle in a dress, and like everyone else was telling their women to stay back, and she was just like, no, I'm not gonna stay back, and she was like, let me come with you. But Cecily, she was like, you're gonna let me come with you whether you like it or not. Your homegirl was just popping up. Like there was a scene when like Will was like going to hell, and Cecily literally followed him, and he literally had no choice but to say no. Like he was like, what are you gonna do, say no? Like he couldn't, like, because Cecily does not take no for an answer. Like Cecily was that girl, okay? And one thing about this is like I have found a Cassandra Clare female character other than Cecily, like female main character, like, you know, that main focus that I like absolutely love, because I didn't care about Clary and I didn't care about Tessa. I thought they was so boring, and I found Clary so annoying, and I thought I was the only person who found Tessa annoying, which is why I never said anything until Mika said something, and I was like, oh thank God, because she was just so irritating. But yeah, I don't know, I love Cecilia. She's like literally one of my favorite characters, and I can't wait to follow her kids in Chain of Gold and like see her as a mom, and like just seeing them in Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy. When I read that, like seeing them as parents like actually made me really, really happy, and it's just, I loved it, which is so crazy because I didn't really care. Like the series as a whole, I think I would give like a 3.5 star or like 3.75 or maybe even a 4 star, but I would not give this series. I think I would give this series a 3.5 star as a whole, but reading like their stories and tales of Shadowhunter Academy just made me so happy, and seeing them as parents and then seeing their kids. And okay, I'm not talking about them, but all I want to say is James Herondale is baby. Okay, I love James Herondale and I can't wait to read about him in Chain of Gold. Like, he's gonna be my fave. Like, I can already tell. And I already can tell that Cordelia is gonna be my fave too. Like, I really hope that I end up like standing her. But yeah. Anyways, on to the ending. So the ending, I was already spoiled for the ending. People on book Twitter really like are ruthless and they don't care, which is understandable. Like, it's been like years since this book has like came out, so it's completely understandable that it was like spoiled. But I just like, I hate that I was spoiled for it, because I literally got spoiled for it like last year. Like, I went so long without being spoiled for this book, and then out of nowhere, like, I just kept seeing spoilers, and one person spoiled for me, and then everybody else like was spoiling it. When I read it, like, everyone was always so sad about Will when he dies, and like I was expecting Will to like die from like betrayal, or like was slaughtered, like some tragic death. Man's really died of old age. Like, y'all have me out here thinking that this man had like was betrayed by somebody, had the worst death ever. No, he just died of old age. Like, literally, you're gonna get to see him in Chain of Gold. We get to see him in the Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy as a father, which was beautiful, might I add. And so people had me thinking that like he died tragically, when he died a happy life. Like, he died a happy life. He was happy. He was married to the love of his life. He got to see his children grow old. He got to grow old. And the only person that's sad is Tessa, because she was immortal. And it's like, okay, whatever. Like, literally everyone in this book died eventually. Like, literally except Tessa and Jem, everybody else in this series died. So I don't know why everyone is so upset that Will died. Like, he literally was happy, and we're gonna get to see him more. So y'all are so dramatic. I guess for once, I chose to see the lighter side in life, and I was like, well, you get to see him literally throughout the rest of the series, like throughout Chain of Gold, and he literally dies of old age. So he gets to see his children grow old, and I believe he gets to see his children have children. I don't really know, but I'm gonna assume that he does. And so like, he was happy, and that's what I got out of this. He was happy, and he literally didn't die painfully. Name a book character that you love that didn't get to die painfully. You can't. That is it for this video. I hope that you liked it. Please let me know who your favorite character is in the Infernal Devices. Mine is Cecily. She's literally my queen. I love and adore her, and I can't wait to see her children in Chain of Gold. And let me know who your favorite couple is, because my favorite couple actually would be Gabriel and Cecily, because the way she like had this man whipped into shape, I was like, oh, okay. Like, Cecily had everybody, like, she was always whipping everybody into shape, and that's why I had to stand her. Like, we literally had no choice but to stand. But yeah, that's it for this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for the second half of the Mortal Instrument books 4 through 6 in the Mortal Instrument series, which should be up later on this week. And I'll see you guys in that video. Bye.